Welcome to Elections Weekly. I'm your host, Drew Levanti, and this is a show where we take a look at the week ahead through the lens of electional astrology. Thank you to all of the new viewers, and thanks so much to everybody for coming back once again this week. These videos come out every Monday and sometimes Tuesday, like the one today. Yesterday was my birthday, and so I gave myself the permission to put this off one day, even though I have just entered a Saturn perfection. So that schedule is going to get really, really tight for me this year. So we'll see if I'll stick to just the Monday releases from here on out. I want to thank everybody for supporting and commenting and liking and subscribing. I would really like to hear in the comments if you use any of these elections, what happens for you and how things have developed. It's often the case that we don't know how things are going to fully unfold with an election until sometime down the line. So if you've been a viewer of the show for the last few months as I've been doing it, maybe there are some things that have come to pass or that have fully materialized for you, and you can look back on the election and sort of process with that chart. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that in the comments. And of course, liking and subscribing is also a great way to support this channel. Before getting into the elections for this week, I want to invite you to sign up for the waitlist for my electional astrology course called Initiate. I am super excited about this offering. I think this is a groundbreaking course in the electional astrology space right now, which honestly doesn't have a whole lot of educational material available, just a couple big ones that people know about. And so I'm really excited to share my approach and what I've learned over the course of the last couple years. This course is going to be really exciting, filled with not only practical examples and technical rules and considerations that you should bring to your elections, but also more philosophical perspectives and borrowing from different veins of philosophy in order to inform our practice with electional astrology. And by signing up for the waitlist, you'll not only get first access to registration, but you'll also get some unique and exclusive perks to people who are on the waitlist. So you'll definitely want to sign up for that and not just wait for when I announce it publicly. Yeah? All right. Our first election for the week is March 30th at approximately 12:54 p.m. We're looking at having the sun on the midheaven, essentially. So adjust the time in your location so that the sun is on the midheaven, and double check that it's the planetary hour of the sun. In my location, it is, and that's why I have this set for 12:54 p.m., but you might have to adjust it. So we're looking at a Cancer rising here where the moon is ruling the ascendant and it is conjunct Jupiter. This is really, really excellent if you are in my time zone, in the central time zone of the US, like I'm in Chicago, or if you're east of me, because then the moon is still going to be really, really tight with Jupiter. Whereas if you're on the Pacific coast of the US or in Hawaii, then that is going to be, the moon is going to be more close to Neptune in that case, which can have its own special juice there if you're looking to cultivate an air of mystique and an air of mystery around what you're presenting, especially what you're presenting philosophically or in terms of esoteric topics like the ninth house. Maybe not the best thing for being really clear in a legal document or something like that, but it is definitely really good for alluding to things that are larger and vast and incomprehensible in some way. But there are those things which are incomprehensible and inspiring in their incomprehensibility, that the all is always available for that inspiration. With the sun culminating on the midheaven in its own hour on the day of Mercury, when Mercury is here approaching the sun, we're looking at a chart that has a lot to do with standing out and individuating. We have this sun, which is also applying to an aspect with Mars, with reception. And so there's a sense here of succeeding in public, especially through collaborations with others. We see this very busy 8th house where Mars is sitting on the 8th house cusp, the sun ruled by and applying to an aspect with that Mars. And so this combination of the 10th house exalted sun and this Mars, which is also being received by Saturn in the 8th, points to creativity in public and creativity that is being paired with another person's resources, whether those are technical resources, institutional resources, technological resources, with this being in the sign of Aquarius in the 8th house. And the synergy in this chart is really something to be looked upon favorably. we see a lot of reception in this chart. The moon is received by Jupiter. The sun is received by Mars. Mercury is received by the sun by exaltation. And so there's a lot of collaboration and working together in this chart. We also see that the sun rules the second house of income and personal finances, as well as resources and values. And so there's a sense of your value being exalted. You can use this chart for good money stuff, especially money stuff where you might be asking a lot of other people's resources. You might be like putting out an ask that very much feels like an ask, right? Like we see this a busy 8th house. And so there might be some kind of antsiness and excitability going on in the 8th house. As much as this is an election that puts forward the sun as the star of the chart, you know, it is also a chart where the moon is very much dark. The moon, though it's conjunct Jupiter, is in this balsamic phase. And so this could be a really good election for letting go and also for banishing, like getting rid of certain energies or certain influences in your life that you're looking to move beyond. This waning phase of the moon is really good for that kind of purging and releasing kind of work. And the sun itself is also very purifying. You know, the light of the sun is cleaning. It helps us, like, you know, if you just throw your blankets out in the sun, they'll get heated up and they'll be purified by this. So this is something that we also get from the sun, this sense of clarification and purpose and moving forward, and moving beyond something that is looking to be let go of. Our second chart for the week is going to be March 31st, Thursday at approximately 7 p.m. This is an interesting one. This is getting very close to the exact new moon in my location. We're looking at 9 degrees of Libra rising, putting Mercury and the moon and the sun all on the descendant. We're still looking at a day chart. The reason that this election stands out to me is because the moon is conjoining Mercury in Mercury's hour on an angle. And so this combination of these layers are all pointing to Mercury as the guiding star of this election. And Mercury in this chart is combust. It's getting very close to its renewal. And so there is a sense of starting fresh in this chart, a sense of communicating that which must be communicated in order to start fresh, getting something off of your chest, communicating assertively. This Mercury in Aries, you know, Mercury in Aries gets a lot of a track record for, you know, being the zing Mercury. It's like, zing, gotcha, like here's my point, and isn't it the most awesome point? This chart also happens to be my Mercury return. But looking at Mercury, this Mercury is actually in the terms of Venus. The terms of Venus, where Mercury is known for poetics, you know, communicating in artful ways. And so as much as there is the potential to use this chart for some kind of like communicating with people that you need to communicate with about something that you would like to let go of with the newness of these cycles, it is also a really interesting election for arts. You know, with Mercury being in the terms of Venus here at 9 degrees of Aries, and also Venus ruling the chart in the 5th. And so the 5th house of this chart, having Mars and Saturn and Venus, all pointing to 5th house themes of pleasure and recreation and arts. Venus rejoices in the 5th house, and although she is positioned here with both malefics, having recently left the rays, or rather having just recently left the clutches of Saturn and now getting ready to move toward her exaltation in Pisces, Venus is still aware of difficulties in the 5th house, difficulties with creativity, but they are receding. That influence with Saturn and Mars is separating because Venus is kind of speeding past them. And so this combination of Venus separating from Saturn and Mars, and also the moon and Mercury being at the very end of their cycle, gives me the sense that this is a great election for moving beyond creative blockages and embracing your spontaneity in terms of creativity and artistic expression. The next chart for the week is Friday, April 1st at approximately 1:05 p.m. What I've done here is I've set the chart so that it has approximately 0 degrees of Leo rising. You definitely want Leo rising rather than Cancer rising. So it's very possible that in your location, you're going to have to adjust the time so that it's different from this 105 just to click it forward into Leo. We see the moon here as well, still very close to the sun. In fact, in some locations, the moon will actually still be conjunct the sun if you're in the Eastern Hemisphere, especially if you're maybe in East Asia or something like that. The moon will still be very, very close to the sun, if not even not yet new. So depending on exactly what phase the moon is in, if it's before the exact conjunction with the sun or after, that's going to shape the flavor of this a little bit. In my location, it happens to be waxing. This moon is getting bigger, and so this sense of the Aries new moon growing, right? The Aries new moon activating and getting moving on something. With both luminaries on the midheaven like this, there's a sense of one's star rising. And so what is it that you are looking to rise with or rise as? The Aries new moon is an excellent time to be vision boarding or setting your intentions for what is essentially the astrological new year, Aries being the first sign of the zodiac, so the new moon in Aries bringing us into this very new energy, a place that is full of opportunity and potential, that Aries energy of innocence and not knowing what the road is going to hold. It's like the Fool card. And moving forward with that innocence and that naivete can actually be very open-ended. It helps us access possibilities that we might not have thought possible, as well as just being incredibly energizing. And so for anything that you're looking to have a lot of zest and verve, any project that you're looking to devote yourself to over the long term, and the long-term quality of this isn't something that would immediately seem relevant because, it's Aries, right? Don't we hear that thing about Aries and burnout? Well, yes, but this particular new moon in Aries is ruled by Mars, who is in a Saturn-ruled sign, conjunct Saturn, there in Aquarius in the 7th sign of the chart and kind of close to the 8th house cusp. So this is an Aries new moon that is very much flavored by Saturn, and so there's a lot of potential to wed that spontaneity and that passion and that zest for life that Aries has, that movement forward, that looking for breakthroughs, combining that with a more structured and disciplined attention and an ability not only to work or to devote your energy to something, but also to plan the method by which you'll be executing that work. To plan the work the plan, these Saturnian themes. And what I really love as well is that this Aries new moon is not only ruled by the Mars, but it's moving into an aspect with this Mars, and that is an aspect with reception. And so there's, again, a lot of harmony in this chart where multiple actors are working together. And so we can consider, who are these actors exactly? Well, Saturn is the ruler of the 7th house, and so this might represent people who are calling in, specifically people who you'll be having a lot of one-on-one contact with. Mars, as the ruler of the midheaven, is showing what the heck is going on right now? Why are we doing this? Not only what, but why? And so that sense of bringing people in, again, with the 7th house. So there's definitely a client orientation of this and a contact and a connection way that I see this chart playing out. So combining that midheaven, that 9th house or 9th sign midheaven with the 7th sign planets over there in Aquarius, where they're all really working together. This is a great one for astrology and for also bringing in people who are really passionate to work with you in a long-term way. Our chart for Saturday this week is a Cancer rising. We're looking at April 2nd at approximately 12:52 p.m. And in my location, I'm able to get a Cancer rising where the moon has just ingressed freshly into Taurus. In your location, the moon might still be in Aries, and that is actually totally fine because this election is not really built around the moon so much. It's nice that in my location, the moon's exalted, but in Taurus these days, with Mars and Saturn also in a fixed sign, the moon in Taurus can be a little bit crunchy. So instead, this election is really built around Mercury. We have the hour of Mercury with Mercury on the midheaven. And actually, Mercury has a bit of essential dignity here as well, because 12 degrees of Aries is within the terms of Mercury. It's the first degree of Mercury's terms in Aries, which go up into the late teens of the sign. And so we're looking at a Mercury that has some navigability in this place, and it's Cazimi. So this would be, Cazimi is that sense of having the king's ear, or being able to communicate with the king, getting the insight that you need, or delivering the insight that you need to give. So it can work either way, where you might be trying to influence a situation where somebody else is calling the shots and you want to provide your input. It could also be a good time for a conversation with somebody who's influential, or who you see as influential in your life, and getting some advice. With the 10th house position of this Mercury and this Sun, if you're using this not in a sort of devotional or a theurgical way, which would actually be a pretty good use of it given the planetary hour consideration, if you're using this just for more of I need to send an email, or I need to whatever it is that people do, launch something, this is a decent chart for that, especially if what you're doing is mercurial. One thing that I do find sometimes with Mercury Cazimi elections is that there can be some burnout, and so the sustainability of the project might be threatened, because you have to consider the combustion, that sense of Mercury being burned up by the sun doesn't just go away when Mercury goes Cazimi. Cazimi is like an add-on factor where there's extra access to influence and extra access to divine insight, which the sun is the symbol of. And so Mercury can kind of bring that insight from the sun. But in terms of sustaining that level of access to the divine, that shit is taxing. And so you want to be careful if you are planning to launch this, what is the time horizon? Can you really sustain this for more than 6 months? Is this something that is more, fast acting and we're just going for it right now? Then this would be a really good chart for that, because that Aries energy is going to support you in those more direct and fast acting ways. But the combustion of Mercury is going to be a little bit compromising for the longevity and the ability to sustain that energy for the long term. Our Sunday chart for the week is a pretty good one. This is another chart built around a planetary hour, and it is the day and hour of the sun. And you can see that it's Sunday, the sun is rising, which means that it's the sun's day and the sun's hour, because sunrise is always the same planetary hour as the day. So it's the exalted sun. It's the sun in the middle decan of Aries, which is the decan of Aries that it rules. We have this sense of being the king. Where do you want to be a king? And what does kingship mean to you? What does sovereignty mean to you? I think that sometimes when we talk about sovereignty, it can create some friction with notions of relationality, which is also very important, of course. And so this might be a good election for tuning in to what is that connection between sovereignty and relationality? How can we be sovereign, self-sourced, or as the Orphic hymn, the Thomas Taylor translation of the Orphic hymn to the sun goes, self-born, unwearied in diffusing light, and to all eyes the mirror of delight, right? Self-born, to be self-sourced in one's power and one's authority, and to be unwearied in continuing to not get tired of shining those rays. The sun is that seemingly immortal furnace of self and of creation and of divinity. And so while that sovereignty and that notion of, being on the throne or leaving the throne to go and do something with one's power, as the sun likes to do in Aries, there is also a notion of relationality here. There is a clear indication in the chart that we are also acting in collaboration, because we have, again, this ongoing reception between the sun and Mars, where these two planets are moving into a sextile aspect, where Mars is ruling the sun. And we also have Mars, the ruler of the ascendant in this chart, conjoining Saturn with reception. And so that combination of one's own sovereignty, one's own willpower, with the agency and the wills of others, whether those are human others or non-human others. I like that the moon is in Taurus in this chart for bringing us into that earth element. So all of the elements are represented in this chart, and so this gives us another sign of that allness or that all-togetherness that goes on here. This is not a talismanic election. This is not an election for making materia or doing anything along those lines because the moon is afflicted. So just don't do it. I actually, people can do whatever elections they want, but some elections that I see people using for ensouling matter, take my course. Yeah, I mean, it's all very personal, and like, as long as you're practicing elections like before ensouling things, I think that's good. As long as you have developed your own relationship with the planets and you're not just like, oh, that looks cool, let me make something. Like, there's a lot of care that is required with these kind of things. And the reason that I bring this up is because, this is a Sunday, sun hour election, and so some people might be tempted to make solar materia here. But the moon is really not in a position to do that because it's being looked upon unfavorably by both Mars and Saturn. So just do something a little bit lighter, a little bit less concerned with the material incarnation of things, which is what the moon is about. All right, Monday chart. Our Monday chart is quite a doozy. This is one of the most difficult days to elect. This is definitely the most difficult day of the week to elect because we're looking at, first of all, the exact Mars-Saturn conjunction, which in this chart falls in the 5th sign and in the 4th house of the chart. We have a Libra rising 23 degrees, Venus at 29 degrees of Aquarius, and the moon in an applying aspect with Venus from 28 degrees of Taurus with reception. The thing that stands out to me about this chart is that the Venus things in this chart are all very late degree. The Venus things in this chart are all very late degree. Venus, 29 degrees of Aquarius, about to enter its exaltation. The moon, in Venus's exaltation, about to change signs. So this is another election where things might have been rough for a while. Again, Venus ruling the chart, leaving this besiegement of Mars and Saturn, and about to enter its exaltation. And so that exaltation is something that is yet to come, and it's about to come. And so anything that you're doing creatively that feels like the bonds are being loosened a little bit and that you've experienced all of that pressure with respect to creativity or what you enjoy or what you think is for you to make. Like, what children are you bringing into the world? Not literal children necessarily, but what are your babies? Like, when you think about the things that you've made or the things that you've brought into the world that you want to bring in the world, have you consolidated some of your desires around that? Have you put your desires and your creative will in that crucible, in that Saturnian pressure cooker, and out of that, what is the exalted fruit going to be? Because that's something that with Venus here moving into Pisces is about to take place. The moon is, while it does have reception from Venus in this chart, that reception is by square, and Mars and Saturn are still looking at the moon. And so this is a chart where there's an anxiety to this chart with the moon being in the 8th house, with the North Node, which the North Node, either node actually, will tend to distort lunar significations like comfort and rest and move them more in the direction of either over-seeking comfort in the case of the North Node or totally ignoring what one needs physically with the case of the South Node. And these things can show up differently in different people's charts depending on what else is going on. But just at a general level, these are some reads on this. And so this moon in the 8th house of the chart, afflicted by Mars and Saturn, afflicted by the North Node, this is a potentially very draining election, something that you've invested a lot of emotion, like the investments of the 8th house, the energetic investments and entanglements with whether it's other people's resources or if it's just the expectations and the energetics of expectations that you have with, what are other people expecting of you. And so maybe there's a way in which this election can function to release those expectations, especially with the moon about to leave that Taurus 8th sign and enter the 9th sign of the chart. So an emergence from the darkness of the 8th house into the shining light of the 9th, where we're more concerned with what is possible and what can be explored, not what must be explored because we're committed to other people's expectations or we have to follow any particular path. The sense of inevitability in the 8th house is being reduced in favor of a more 9th house, broadening, opening up perspective. And so we see here this way that there are shifts happening in the chart, that Venusian topics are shifting for the better, and so this could also go for relationships. We see this exalted sun in the 7th sign of the chart, as well as Mercury there, very close to the descendant. And so this is a chart where there's quite a bit of support for communication and relationships, and so maybe this expectation talk that I'm giving is also about expectations within a relationship and having your words received or your entanglements examined in a way that can disentangle some things that need to be, right? The planetary hour for this election is the hour of Venus, and so this doubles down on the Venusian themes of the election, Venus ruling the ascendant, Venus ruling the planetary hour, Venus ruling the moon. And so you can see again, like how I work with elections is that these things all match up. Like there is really a story that we can tell with these elections, and that's what I love about this craft. It is very much a storytelling craft, and that is what I'm going to be teaching in my electional astrology course, which will be coming late spring, early summer. And so you can sign up for the waitlist for that at the link in the video description, as well as, just stay tuned for other offerings that I'm going to be having coming out about electional astrology in addition to this weekly show. I'm super pumped to get into my 3rd house perfection and get communicating with y'all and sharing what I know. I have Jupiter in the 3rd house in Capricorn, and so that's activated for me this year. I'm going to be sharing a lot of information that I've been building up for a long time, that sense of Capricorn and Saturn and building things that, once they're yours, they're yours. And so often information in astrology can seem like fleeting, like, do I know what I think I know? And over the course of the past year, in a Jupiter perfection where my Jupiter is in a Saturn ruled sign, I've really solidified a lot of my views about not only electional astrology or not only about astrology in general, but also about just how I think that energy works and how I think that manifestation works. And so these are things that I'm bringing into my craft right now in a public way, not only in my own practice. And so I'd love for you to join on the journey. And so you can stay tuned for what's going on by clicking the link and putting in your email so I can get in touch with you that way. Thanks everybody for joining this week, and I will see you next week. It'll be Monday this time. See ya.